All right, so first play we're going to look at, 2nd and 2, one of the Patriots' first offensive plays.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back into another episode of the Patriots Daily Podcast, powered by Prizepicks, powered by Game Time. And today, powered by a very special guest. It is Justin Melo of the Draft Network. He is an NFL draft expert. He also covers the Tennessee Titans, as you can see by his background. And so we're going to get into a lot of draft stuff here. We're going to get into some Mike Vrabel insight because he's been covering the Titans for some time. But first and foremost, before we get into the nitty gritty, Justin, we have to ask you, it's our new intro here. We're trying it out with our guests. Are you watching any good shows recently? What are you in the middle of? And if we haven't seen it, can you convince us to watch it?
Interesting. Good one. I just finished Landman. I know I'm pretty late on most of this stuff. Landman on Paramount. I enjoyed
My parents
season
are
one.
obsessed with that show.
Yeah, I thought it was good. I thought Billy Bob Thornton was great in it. Now, I'll give you something you're not expecting at all, because I don't like cheesy reality television, but in the thick of the NFL draft, I got to find some time for my wife, right? So our cheesy show that we love watching together is 90 Day Fiancé. Not embarrassed to admit it. I love a good 90 Day Fiancé episode with all the drama that goes on there. But for the most part, I'm like, my favorite shows of all time are Breaking Bad, The Wire.
Hell yeah.
I'd say The Wire's top two. Sons of Anarchy, Boardwalk Empire, super underrated. But right now, I did really enjoy Landman. I thought it was pretty good.
I need some trash TV, so 90 Day Fiancé, adding that to the list. I also just finished Sopranos, so I've been on a little bit of an Anthony Buscemi. I'm like, I kind of want to see more of him, so I was thinking about starting Boardwalk Empire. Maybe that's the kick I needed.
Oh, I love Boardwalk. Boardwalk is so good. And, Sopranos, I hate to say this because I'm the outlier, but, I think my mistake was I did it after The Wire. And I think The Wire is so much better. Just my honest opinion. I felt like I was set up for disappointment with The Sopranos because I expected it to meet the level of The Wire, and it didn't for me.
Well, I haven't seen The Wire yet, so I'm good. I'm untainted. Let's go.
So good.
The Wire and Sopranos are both on my list of must watch because of how classic they are. My number one, as you mentioned, Justin, Breaking Bad. It's just perfect. It continues to be my favorite show, but I do need to get into some of these other ones. I think I tried The Wire for an episode and a half. I don't know why I couldn't get into it. But
it's slow.
Got to get over that hump.
Yeah,
okay.
I know why you couldn't. It is slow, but if you stick with it, man, season 1, 3, and 4 are unbelievable.
All right. What happens in season 2? Real quick, this is the last thing I'll ask. What happens in season 2?
Season 2 is very divisive among, I think, the Wire audience. It almost feels like a total departure. It kind of deals with, the docks. So, boat workers and all that shipping and containing side of it. And some people swear by it. Others hate it. It was a bit too much of a departure for me from what The Wire kind of sticks to in season 1, 3, and you know what? Season 4 is a big departure too, but it was heartbreaking. I loved it.
Usually season 1 is the kind of funky season, and season 2 is where they catch stride. So that's interesting. It had a weird second and then got back on track. Fascinating. Okay, I'm done. I can do this for the entire pod. We got to start. I think
Taylor, we've hit it on the head though with this new intro. So great idea by you. But let's get into the good stuff here. Patriots draft, perfect guy here as Justin Melo joins us. And we were going to start with some top needs the Patriots have, but you actually just reported this morning that the Patriots have a 30 visit set up with wide receiver Jalen Noel from Iowa State. You've also reported on a couple other visits, cornerbacks Jacob Parrish and cornerback Corey Thornton as well. So just your overall thoughts on the interest you've seen the Patriots take to some of these guys. And I guess we can maybe loop in the needs as well, sort of your thoughts on who they visited with and what holes they need to fill to kind of take this thing to the next level.
Well, I've got good news for Patriots fans. It sounds like to me that they're interested in good football players, right? Like Jalen Noel from Iowa State leaped the best vertical and broad jump of any receiver at the combine. He ran a 4.39 40. The production speaks for itself at Iowa State. He was a go-to playmaker for them in the offense this past season. And then he was excellent at the Senior Bowl. So I said this to him when I spoke with him yesterday. Check. He's been checking boxes the whole time, the whole pre-draft process. Short area quickness, explosive, knows how to get open, favorable, target for his quarterback, which in New England would be a young one in Drake May. And I think we know he could use more of those, right, as they try to build this offense around him and get more pass catchers in the mix. So phenomenal football player. I feel similarly about Jacob Parrish, who was outstanding at the combine as well. High level athlete, good ball production. I'm glad you brought up Corey Thornton because I think that meeting happened at the Shrine Bowl, if I recall correctly.
Okay.
This is a guy that is so underrated throughout this process. I'm just going to lay it out for you. I don't like to keep a lot of secrets. So I get a text a couple months ago from Louisville defensive backs coach Steve Ellis, who coached Corey Thornton this year. Now I know Coach real well. Let me just run you. Let me give you the CV on Coach Ellis a little bit. That's why I listen when he talks. Okay, it doesn't
Sure.
even make sense the type of talent he's had considering the programs he's been at. He was at Middle Tennessee State. You want to guess who he had there? I mean, who have they only had? Kevin Byard, Charvarius Ward. He coached all the good DBs that come out of Middle Tennessee State. I can't remember where he moved on. I think he was at East Carolina for a while. He recruits Siobhan Revel, okay, who might be going in the first round of this year's draft. He goes to Louisville. He has Jarvis Brownlee Jr. last year, who was a fifth-round steal for the Titans. He had Storm Duck. This year he had Quincy Riley and Corey Thornton. Like, Coach Steve Ellis is one of the best in the nation. Doesn't matter where he goes, he knows
It's
CBs.
crazy.
He texted me a couple months ago and goes, "You got to get on this kid, man. I'm not seeing enough in the media about him. I'm telling you, not blowing smoke up your you know what. This kid can play." And he's, 6'1", 200 pounds. I dive into the tape, and lo and behold, Coach wasn't lying to me. This guy, I think, is one of the best sleepers in this draft, just like Charvarius Ward was when he came out, and Jarvis Brownlee and Kevin Byard, all those guys that he's had. I really like this kid, man. He plays ball. I think he's going to be a steal for a team.
All right, so there's another guy that I want to mention that I know the Patriots have had to visit with, Ariante Ursary. Now, I'm curious what your thoughts are on him. I don't know why he's not really getting talked about. I know, like, in the mock drafts, he's not getting a ton of love as a first-round pick. And I know that he's got some things he needs to clean up, but when you're talking about, like, the tackle runs that we've seen the past couple of years, as much as I'd love for him to fall to the Patriots at 38, I feel like if, Travis Hunter, say, falls to them at number 4 and they still need that tackle, it seems like he's the perfect guy, but they may need to move up for him. So what do you think about Ursary?
Yeah, he would be a perfect guy for them at 38. I think that's a dream scenario for them if they take anything other than, say, Will Campbell or Armand Embo, who they've been linked to as well, of course, coming out of Missouri. But you know what's one of my favorite things about Ariante Ursary, and it's going to sound real simple, but you'll know what I mean. He's a tackle. And I know he's a tackle. And in this class, we don't know a lot of that, right? Like there's the Will Campbell. We've had 73 different arm measurements on Will Campbell. It's getting out of hand. Kelvin Banks, there's been some chatter about him playing guard as well. Josh Simmons out of Ohio State's got the injury that he's coming off of. So there's not a lot of straightforward evaluations this year at offensive tackle. And I think Ariante Ursary is a straightforward evaluation. I mean, the size is out of this world. The arm length, the measurements. When I watch the tape, I think he's mean. He's powerful. He's athletic. I'm a huge fan. I'm with you. I think it's within the realm of possibility that he's there at 38. 26 to 40 range, right? If I was a betting man, that's where he probably ends up getting drafted. He's not a surefire first rounder, but you're right. Like I'm reading these mock drafts. They've got 3 tackles in the first round. We had 8 last year, right? Like that's and in a week with a perceived weak class, some teams are just going to be like, I'm going to take a tackle. I'm going to take a guy that's a premium position. So I'm a big fan of his. That would be a home run for the Patriots if they go Hunter or Carter or whatever else at 4 and then Ursary at 38. I mean, he's plug and play at left tackle.
I got good goosebumps, baby.
Yeah, that's good stuff. On the arm length with Campbell, I want to get your take on this because we've gone back and forth on this show really not just since the beginning of draft season, but since sort of towards the end of last season when we were trying to figure out what the Patriots need, where they were going to land, etc. There was a presumption that he may come in short. He obviously comes in sub 33 at the combine, a little bit longer. And like you said, it's become this complete saga. As a draft Nick and as someone who is all over this type of stuff, how much stock do you put in the arm length? Does it matter? Does it matter as much? Does it matter a little bit more than what we've seen? And ultimately, do you think Will Campbell can play tackle at the next level? Does he deserve a shot at it? Is he a guard? What's your take on the whole situation?
I do put a good amount of stock into arm length. I think for me, anytime I go through any measurements, I think what matters most to me is arm length for a edge and for a tackle, right? Like
Sure.
those are the two that I typically prioritize in my evaluation. It makes his evaluation tricky. It's a tricky question, right? Like it reminds me a little bit. You'll remember Peter Skoronski coming out of
Hmm.
Northwestern just 2 years ago. Now, mind you, he was even shorter than Will Campbell, but similar in the sense where it's like, well, he's got these 4 great years of tape at left
Right.
tackle. He didn't play a single game at guard at Northwestern. Peter, you gotta let him play tackle. He's so good at tackle. Nobody thought he was a tackle in the NFL. Titans
Hmm.
took him at 11. They didn't even consider it. They put him at guard right away. And again, he was even shorter than Will Campbell. There are a couple tackles playing in the NFL with Will Campbell's arm length. Braden
Soon to be
Smith
Will
from the
Guard.
Colts. Yeah.
Sorry.
Braden Smith from the Colts is one of them, if I recall
Yeah.
correctly. At least playing it at a high level. You know, I tend, if you put me on the spot, I probably go guard.
Okay.
I think maybe the smartest thing they could do if it is New England, and I talked to a guy who said this yesterday about him. I talked to a scout who said, "We live by the old mantra, fail at tackle, move to guard."
Mhm.
Right. So I think if you're the Patriots and you go him, first of all, you don't take him at 4 if you think he's a guard, right?
Right.
Like you could be wrong and end up playing him at guard, but you don't take him if you think he's a guard at 4.
100%.
So if you take him at 4, you gotta let him try at tackle, and you kind of feel good about the fallback possibility that, hey, if all else fails, I'm kicking him inside, and I've probably got a high level starter at guard.
Yeah, the Will Campbell evaluation feels like it's kind of gone off the rails because I agree with you. Everything he's done and the fact that, outside of the wingspan and the arm length, which aren't great, he checks every other box. So I think it is, yes, start him at tackle, but he moves to guard, which is why, for me, I prefer Armand Membu because the Patriots do not have a long-term answer at right tackle. Maybe it's Caden Wallace, but this is a new regime. Armand Membu, you try him at left tackle, and if it doesn't work out, well, you still have a tackle. So I'm curious what you think about Membu and whether or not he may be a better choice for the Patriots based on their roster needs and having Layden Robinson at that left guard spot, potentially a starter. And also, just to wrap up the whole tackle spot, are there any day 3 guys you think the
Mm.
Patriots could maybe double dip on if they don't maybe get their pick early on? Maybe just a better player that falls to them and they decide to wait.
Yeah, I really like Armand Embo, but let's call it what it is as well. I don't think there was a lot of hype for number 4 overall until the combine, right?
Mhm.
And I get it. We're allowed to change our minds as the evaluation goes forward. He ran, I think it was a 4.9140 at 332 pounds. Like it's totally unheard of, and it's why that he's entering these conversations. Now, I still think it's a bit tricky. I think Will Campbell's tape was probably better than
Mhm.
his was, and he played right tackle at Missouri. So now you're potentially asking him to move to
Hmm.
left tackle. I'll remind you, not because I cover them, but Titans did that last year with J.C. Latham, where they
Right.
drafted a right tackle, they put him at left tackle, and guess what? They're moving him back to right tackle now this
Mhm.
coming season. So it's a bit of a dangerous game to play. Are they comfortable playing him on the right side? Do they think he can kick over to left? Those are other questions they have to ask. Now, I really liked his tape. I don't want to downplay it by saying I thought Will Campbell's was better. I really love his tape, and in the combine, I think solidified top 10 for me. Certainly, he was the best one in attendance there out of any of the tackles in at Lucas Oil Stadium. So I'm a big fan of the player. I think 4 might be a bit lofty, but it wouldn't shock me if it's within consideration because of the questions surrounding Will Campbell, the boost that he's getting from the combine performance. Certainly within the realm of possibility. Now, in terms of day 3 tackles. There are a couple that I like. I really like up your way. Ozzy Trapillo from Boston College
Hmm.
is one that I think deserves a bit more buzz. He's just super steady. He's got some experience. He's got some experience at left tackle and right tackle. He was at the Senior Bowl. Just a good, consistent football player. Another one I like, more of a right tackle, is Anthony Nelson, who was also there in Mobile at the Senior Bowl. He's got great measurements. I think he's got a terrific temperament for the position. Comes from sort of one of these blue blood programs, for offensive linemen. There are a couple of guys there on day 3, but I tend to like the interior class a bit better. I mean, look, let's be honest. Tackle's a premium position, man. You're good luck finding instant starters or high end players on day 3. Similar to edge, right? You don't really find those guys on day 3. They go early for a reason.
And you actually mentioned the interior. So really quick, I do want to hit on center because the Patriots did
Hmm.
not pair Bradbury right now, but clearly is not a long-term solution. And even Cole Strange, you're not sure what he even is at the NFL level yet. So who are some center prospects you think could come in for the Patriots? Probably not super early, but really it feels like the strength is in the middle, probably towards the end, where they could either compete for that starting spot in year one or maybe take it over in year two.
Well, obviously, I know the back end guys, but the high end ones are Jared Wilson out of Georgia and Gray Zabel out of North Dakota State, right? I think probably in the Zabel. I mean, his projections are all over the place, right? Like, so I've seen him in first round mocks. I think he's more of a day two guy. I think the same of Wilson out of Georgia. I think both of them should probably be third round picks, but we'll see. I mean, it
Interesting.
wouldn't shock me if the Seahawks take one of them at 18. That's a very Seahawks move, right? At 18, 19 overall,
Yep.
and they desperately need linemen, so don't be shocked if they do something like that. But I'll tell you who my favorite one is a little bit later. And I mean, I don't even know how late he's going to go at this point because he's boosted his stock. Everyone seems to be catching up on him. Don't you hate when that happens? You love when
Oh
you're
yeah.
first on
Worse.
someone, then everyone catches up. One of my favorites dating back to January, and I had the pleasure of speaking to him, so I kind of got an early look at him, was Jackson Slater out of Sacramento State. This guy
Hmm.
went down to the Senior Bowl, as a small schooler, had to prove that he could compete at that level, and he did. He was phenomenal in Mobile. You watch his tape, he played every position but center. But here's the inside scoop for you. That's where scouts think he's going to play. Like, scouts have
Hmm.
consistently told him, you're a center at the next level and probably a damn good one. So I'm a huge, huge fan of Jackson Slater. Phenomenal athlete. Checked boxes in Mobile in terms of the small school competition question. Another one that I really like on day three, and I think he can play center, but he's also a bit all over the place, is Miles Frazier out of LSU.
Yeah.
Uh, I tend to lean guard with him, but I think he's got true five positional versatility. Really interesting guy. Was really good in Mobile, and I'll throw you out one more is that's not getting enough love is Caleb Rogers. I thought was really really good in Mobile as well. That's another guy with true five positional versatility. I think he probably ends up at guard, but he played a lot of tackle in college. But I think there's some upside there at center as well.
Love it. So before we
Slater
wrap
sounds
up,
like, I'm sorry,
go.
really quick.
Nope, you're
How does
good.
Jackson Slater compare to Marcus and Bo? Because now they sound kind of similar, the super versatile guys. I haven't seen Slater's tape yet, so I don't know what he looks like from a movement perspective.
Marcus Bo is probably one of the strangest evaluations you'll ever. I mean, if you've watched the tape, Taylor, you might know what I'm talking about. Like,
Different.
where a lot of linemen thrive on or preach, patience and stuff. I said this to Marcus when I spoke to him a couple months ago, and he laughed and he corroborated it. He looks like he's playing tackle like he's an edge rusher. Like,
Yeah.
he's just always in attack mode, right? Like, he always wants to get hands on first. There's not a lot of, let me sit back and play the patient game and read. No,
And he
attack,
plays
attack,
with his
attack.
food too. He plays with his food.
Yes,
Like he's trying to just mess with guys.
it's got to be one of the strangest evaluations I've ever conducted. I love it. I don't think he's going to play tackle at the next level. I do think he'll be an interior guy.
Gotcha.
Prize Picks is the best place to get real money, sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all, and all you have to do is pick more or less on at least two players for your shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. So run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Make sure to sign up on Prize Picks today and use that code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that is code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. All right. Well, before we wrap up on a few more draft questions, I do want to get your thoughts on the Patriots' new head coach, and that is Mike Vrabel, because he was the Tennessee Titans coach for some time. You've obviously been covering the Titans for a while as well, Justin. So I guess your initial thoughts on the first couple months of the Vrabel era here at Foxboro from what you've seen from afar, but also anything you can tell us about the kind of coach he is. Do you expect him to continue to have success? And maybe even a little insight into like the downfall in Tennessee and why things went awry so fast.
Yeah, I got great stuff to say for Patriots fans because I'm a huge Mike Vrabel fan. I
Cool.
didn't agree with the Titans' decision to let him go at the time, and I think this is a home run hire for the Patriots. He is one of the most unique coaches I've ever had the pleasure of covering. he comes off, he certainly got a hard shell, right? Like he certainly
Hmm.
comes off as a hard ass, if you will. But I think the truly special coaches, they know when to turn it on and when to turn it off. And I think he's got that ability. And I think to the point is that's what makes him unique and is so special. I'll give you an example. I want to say it was AJ Brown very early in his career, and this is not a story you'll probably be familiar with. He fumbled in the middle of a game near the end zone. And I remember thinking, oh, Vrabel's going to chew him out. Like it was just one of those you can't have it
Hmm.
moments, right? And he walks over to the sideline, and you see Vrabel talking to him. And after the game, and I was taken aback because it wasn't what I expected. I got proven wrong. He says, well, it was the exact opposite. He just said, you'll get it back. You'll make a play the next time you get an opportunity. Like he is a hard ass, but his ability to know
He knows his players.
when, yes, to know when to act in the moment, I think really sets him apart and makes him truly, truly special. I don't think you know what you're going to get with him most of the time. You start thinking you've got him figured out and you don't, right? And I think
Sure.
that's something that I really appreciated about his coaching style. And look, he doesn't come without his warts. I think you've seen some of it probably online. Like they've signed 73 former Titans this offseason, right?
Yeah.
Like
Too loyal.
yeah, the coaching staff is again like it's essentially the same coaching staff that he had in Tennessee, right? Terrell Williams, who I've got nothing but great things to say, but in an elevated role now as the DC. I think Clinton McMillan is there as your D-line
Hmm.
coach. That's an elevated role.
Todd Downing's
Jason
here.
Todd Downing, which again probably not a very popular one based on the arrest he had in Tennessee with the
Sure.
alleged DUI. I'm going to say alleged in case his lawyers are watching, but and a couple of the others as well, right? Like, you had who else is there? I think Zach Kerr might be there. Like a bunch of low
Packers
level
Yep.
guys that were low level
linebackers
assistants.
coach.
I
Yeah.
remember them all. Who's
Scott
the
Booker.
yeah, Booker, Scott Booker is there. There's a ton of Jason Hotailing is there as an assistant
Tony
O-line
Deuce.
guy, I think, which
It is
was
the
not
entire Tennessee staff. That's so funny. That's
yeah,
awesome.
like everyone, right? And
Yeah.
it's like some like for example, like I mean some of these guys are now in lower level roles, but like with Jason Hotailing, it was like people didn't feel like he was ready for the O-line job. Vrabel gave him that job. Said it went on, stuck his neck out. Said it was the best interview he had ever conducted with any assistant coach ever. Gave him the
Okay.
O-line coach job. Man, I'm not going to sit here and say it was his fault, but the O-line was terrible, right? So when you stick your neck out for an inexperienced guy like that, and then that position doesn't perform, doesn't look great, right? So he's certainly loyal. I mean, Jack Gibbons, I would have bet $4 million on Jack Gibbons ending up in New England when the Titans
I was
didn't
on
tender him.
that.
Like
I was
I mean,
on that.
I mean, it's a no-brainer. He loved him so much, right? And Harold Landry as well. I wrote an article about Landry going there before it happened because days before it was painfully obvious. That was another
Right.
personal favorite of his. So look, there are, in the NFL is a loyalty-based business, right? Like fan bases tend to think, why does it's only my coach that's loyal. I hate this about my coach. No, pretty much all of them are loyal. Mike
Yep.
Vrabel might take it to another level than some of them. I do
We
think he's a
dealt with Bill
fantastic head
Belichick, though,
coach.
who Belichick did the same kind of stuff with
Yeah,
Josh
I mean, and
McDaniels came
listen,
back 3 times, Matt Patricia being
Patricia,
the
yeah.
OC.
and
So
I'll give you, and fans don't talk about this stuff. I'll give you a great example of a situation that crashed and burned when someone did something that every NFL fan wants. Don't hire out of loyalty, just hire the best man for the job. Okay, that's what Frank Reich did in Carolina. Frank Reich do you remember this? He assembled an all-star coaching
super
staff.
staff. Yeah.
Yeah, and he hadn't worked with any of them, right? It doesn't
Hmm.
matter. Hire best for the job. By week 7, or wherever, Frank Reich was fired, and very early on into his tenure, we had stories coming out that they were all backstabbing each other. Because when things do not go well,
Hmm.
when you're losing, it takes a lot of moxie, man. When you're losing, to stick by that guy and say, we can get through this together because I trust who's to the left and right of me. Frank Reich didn't have that in
Hmm.
Carolina. Tyler, I saw you raise your eyebrows there. It's not me reporting it. There was a story, I think it was The Athletic, like when Frank Reich got fired, how there was just all this backstabbing going on in the locker room between assistant coaches who did not know each other.
Crazy.
So NFL fans, they love the idea of just hire the best qualified guy. You got to have some rapport with that person. You got to see things the same way. You got to trust that guy. Yes, Vrabel might be one of the extreme examples of that, but I think he's a phenomenal head coach, and I don't think New England could have made a better decision.
Yeah, and we've seen as Patriots followers, like even with Bill Belichick, like he brings in Bill O'Brien, but it's not the role that Bill O'Brien expected, where it's hands off and it's just like let me do my thing. Bill starts micromanaging, and then you did see where the connections that weren't there, some of the hires that didn't gel, they collapsed and they started to like you said, not backstab, but they started creating conflict and getting into
Yep.
arguments. And even last season, there were the parts where like the people that Elliott Wolf brought in, where they had relationships with the Packers and everything. That was like the best part of the offense. And then the defense was this mismatch of different guys that hadn't really worked together before. And again, you saw the defense was kind of a disaster. The corners were good because Pellegrino had been there, but the front completely fell apart. So the loyalty thing, any coach is, it's going to bite them in the butt, right? At some point, you're going to like a person and not really be able to see the forest through the trees of, he might not be ready for this position. But at the same time, the loyalty. And then I also like you mentioning knowing when to turn it on and off. Belichick did that. I'm sure Vrabel learned it from him. Belichick learned it from Bill Parcells, where it's psychology too. Some guys
Hmm.
you gotta chew them out when they mess up. Some guys, a little hands off and be like, dude, I'm just gonna give you some loving because I know that you're harder on yourself than I'm ever gonna be on you. It doesn't help for me to just scream in your face. So again, like these things can work for and against you, but hopefully Vrabel's second tenure, now he can kind of iron out some of those details and be a little bit better.
The
Yeah.
that example with AJ Brown is good to hear. I think that Bill was like that, and then sometimes wasn't like that with quarterbacks, where he rode Brady until
Wasn't
he
perfect.
couldn't anymore, and then he did it with Mac Jones, and Mac Jones couldn't handle it. So I do like that. I feel as though Vrabel, since he played, he understands the players, but he also understands how to get the most out of his players. So we appreciate the insight on him and looking forward to covering him as well.
Yeah, and from a personnel perspective, of course, to kind of shift the conversation a little bit, but stay on topic.
Yeah.
Of course, the run game was, they thought he was a bit too old school. He was a bruiser, and I think he said it in one of his first media appearances with the Patriots, and it did get some flack where he said, "Oh, you run the ball 30 times a game. That's the teams that win." I think sometimes where he struggles to separate that is, yeah, the history indicates teams that run the ball 30 times win, but is it they don't win because they ran the ball 30 times. They run the ball 30 times because they're winning, right?
Call
Like, I
versus
think there's a bit of,
correlation.
you're
Mhm.
running out the clock. Whereas I think sometimes he leans a little too heavily into well, we got to run the ball because that's the way to win. And you've seen it this year with the receiver. I know the sky's falling there with the lack of receivers, right? Stephon Diggs comes in as a late addition. The contract's a bit bloated. They can get out of it after 1 year, which I think makes it a lot easier to swallow.
Hmm.
But certainly, at times there was, criticisms that not enough emphasis on the passing game. Now he gets a franchise quarterback in Drake May, and he doesn't have a Derrick Henry in that backfield, which
Right.
in Tennessee sometimes I can understand why they leaned on the run game, but there's not Derrick Henry, not prime Derrick Henry there at least, and they've got a quarterback they've got to build around. They've got to make sure that they go out and get some receivers.
And I will say,
All right.
Vrabel, one of the
Go.
first
Sorry.
things he did say was, sorry, real quick, but like
You're
to your
good.
point, he said when people asked him about the running, he's like, well, I had Derrick Henry. So yeah, we ran the
Yeah,
ball a lot. Like he's pretty self-aware where
I
I think, and now he's mentioned like Drake May is the offense, and it seems like he is going to change his approach.
and I was defending that all the time in Tennessee. Titans fans, I would say all the time, look, they've got Derrick Henry, they've got a league average quarterback, and an O line that can't pass protect. So
Yeah.
it's like I don't know what you want them to do, but fan bases, nope, they've got to throw it 45 times. I got to see the Patrick Mahomes offense. I said, look, they every time they drop back, they get sacked, right? Something like that. So it's like, yeah, and they've got Derrick Henry. You combine those two things. I do think Vrabel's going to be willing to bend, but I'd like to see him do a bit more at receiver.
For sure.
Well, we appreciate the insight. This has been an awesome time, Justin. Before we get you out of here, one final question. I know we only have a few minutes left. Looking at the free agent class they put together, how much can a good draft change the outlook of this Patriots team overall?
Yeah, I think they've been really aggressive in free agency. There are mixed results, right? I mean, the Titans did it last year, and they were the worst team in the NFL. I do think it'll be different in New England. I know they've overpaid for some guys, but with the cap going up, I think people are still getting used to what these new contract numbers look like. It might not be as outrageous as it looks at first glance. I think Milton Williams was a dominant football player. They got a bunch of good guys in free agency, and yeah, if Drake May takes that step. They put together a good draft class, which they should when you're picking fourth and 38 and
Hmm.
some of the picks that they have. I expect them to take a sizable step this year. What they win 3-4 games last year? Like
Last year
I
was
don't see
four.
why. Yeah, I don't see why they shouldn't expect to win, 6, 7, 8. I think anything more than that would be a very, very promising surprise. If they win 9 plus, I think he's coach of the year, most likely, right? But I think if they
Again.
win
I
6,
know.
7, or 8, I think you're very satisfied with the growth, the year-to-year growth. But as long as the free agency class looks good, because there'll be criticism if they don't, right? Based on the money that they shelled out. You want to, because of his history with running the ball and quarterbacks, you need to see Drake May take that step, because if he doesn't, I think his reputation will work against him a little, right? Like, well, he's not a guy that can develop quarterbacks. He's a defensive-minded guy who wants to run the football. So there's a lot at stake, I think, going into this year, even as a team that maybe doesn't have postseason expectations, but with a good draft class, I think they've still got a lot of holes. I think at 4, there are so many directions they can go in, tackle. I know they Milton Williams, but I was talking about Mason Graham for a little while there at 4 because I think he's a blue chipper, one of very few blue chippers in this class. It could be D tackle, it could be Travis Hunter, it could be Abdul Carter, right? It doesn't have to be one of the tackles. A couple directions they could go in. They've got to fill these holes, but if everything goes well, they should definitely be an improved team in 2025.
Awesome. Some exciting stuff. A good jolt to get our fans pumped up about the Patriots again. And speaking of our fans, before we get you out here, one last time, Justin, where can they find you? What are you up to? And what great things do you have coming draft-wise over the next couple weeks?
Yeah, on Twitter at JustinM_NFL. If you're familiar with my work at all, I do this player interview series on the Draft Network every year. I published my 130th earlier today.
Ooh.
Like this series, thank you. And by the
Good
time I'm
stuff.
done, it's going to be probably, I got a month left. No reason to think I won't be at 170. I've got 7 interviews tomorrow. So it's a
It's
popular
incredible.
series for me and for the site. It does well in league circles. I'm interviewing a ton of future Patriots right now. On draft night, I'll be tweeting out draft weekend when they draft someone that we interviewed. We'll be tweeting out, hey, go familiarize yourself, Patriots fans, because I try to make sure these interviews are not cookie cutter. I'm talking X's and O's. I'm talking scheme. I'm talking arm length and whether it matters, press man, zone coverage. What's your favorite route to run? How do you defeat man versus zone? Like, we're asking the nitty gritty stuff that draft fans want to know. Because if you're a draft fan, you're probably a hardcore football guy. So I really get down to the nitty gritty with them.
Awesome.
We've got over 300 scouting reports up on the Draft Network right now. Our in-house scouting team does a phenomenal job. Our director of scouting won a championship at LSU. He was with that Joe Burrow team on the coaching staff.
Shit.
So we've got a pretty legit scouting department. Mock drafts dropping every single week. I mean, all your draft needs, we've got it covered at the Draft Network. Those interviews right now they've been a lot of fun to publish.
One of our requirements for draft season to be a guest on the show, you are not allowed to be someone who gets more than 2 to 3 hours of sleep a night. It's just not allowed. You got to be grinding almost every minute of every day, and you fill that requirement, brother. Always appreciate having you on. Seriously, everybody, check out the work that Justin's doing, because even if these guys aren't on the Patriots, they're going to be around the league. You're going to face them as opponents. It's just a good way to get an idea of what some of these talented guys are like behind the scenes. And Justin, you do a great job.
Appreciate you guys.
It's awesome. So again, check him out, Justin Melo. He's all over the draft scene. And as far as Patriots Beat, that's our other show, Patriots Daily goes here. We'll be back here daily once again. So make sure you rate, review, and subscribe to the channel here on Patriots Press Pass. He's Tayler Kyles. I'm Mike Kadlick. We will see you next time. Until then, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we will see you next time. Peace out, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Just want to give a quick shout out to our friends over at Game Time. Head over to Game Time and use code CLNS. You get $20 off your first purchase. You can see the Red Sox, Patriots back here in Gillette Stadium. Could be good this year. Stephon Diggs just signed. So fun times down here in Foxboro. And if you want to get to a game again, head over to our friends at Game Time. Use that code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply.